Hey, welcome back. So, I wanted to do a little overview about inner child wounding and how that expresses itself. And I put it all on the board and then realized that I would have to just turn and read it off the board. So, I'm going to read it off my notes here. But when you go out into the world as your adult self, you generally aren't aware that you have all of this wounding inside of you and how it affects your relationships, your day to day life and your manifestation. I've got a little graphic down here I'll explain here in just a minute. So, someone who has the inner child guilt wound feels sorry or bad. They don't like to ask for things. They use guilt to manipulate the people around them. They're afraid to set boundaries. And they normally attract people who make them feel guilty. Repeating cycles. And that's so much of what will actually help you determine your belief systems and where your wounds lie, is what keeps repeating in your life. That's why this is so important. If you carry an abandonment wound, you feel left out, fear being left, hate being alone, codependent. When things get rough, you threaten to leave. You normally attract emotionally unavailable people. And there again, that will be a repeating pattern in your life. The trust wound, afraid to be hurt, doesn't trust themselves, finds ways to not trust people. Because if you don't trust them, then you don't let them in, so then they can't hurt you. See where this all comes together? Feels insecure and needs lots of external validation. So you're always looking for other people to approve of or encourage you on what you're doing. So rather than follow your own path or trust in your own desires, you look outside of yourself for that reinforcement and that love. Doesn't feel safe, normally attracts people who don't feel safe. If you are carrying the neglect wound, struggles to let things go, if you can hold a grudge like a boss, that may be part of it. Has low self-worth, gets angry easily, struggles to say no, represses emotions, fears being vulnerable, and normally attracts people who don't appreciate them or make them feel seen. So the wounding that we carry is a big reason that these patterns repeat in our lives, because until we identify those wounds and figure out the source, oh, this is why I keep attracting all of these losers into my life. This is why I can't ask for the promotion. This is why it's hard for me to accept help from others. So you see how in your day-to-day, these things are going to make a huge difference in the level of success you achieve, how far you are allowing yourself to grow, because all of these things are in the subconscious mind. It's part of that inner child, that wounding that we carry from childhood. And it's important to understand these, because when you look at each category and you can see that, oh, this is what's been happening in my life. Great. That's beautiful, because then you can attack it from healing a trust wound. Now, if you're like me, I like to go big, right? So I went out into the world as an adult with all of these, all of them. I'm greedy. I'm greedy like that. Whoa. And I have the relationship history to prove it. And the reason that I am so well versed on this is because after the last failed relationship, I was like, you know what? I'm so over this, because I was at a place where I had recognized that I did very well when I was by myself. But when a relationship came along, all of this garbage showed up and really threw me off. And clearly, if that's your vibration, that's what you're putting out there, and you're attracting people that make you feel guilty, people that don't feel safe, emotionally unavailable people, and people that don't appreciate you, your relationships are going to suck. And in turn, your relationship with yourself sucks because what you're seeing outside of you, if you're the average person and you haven't done any energy work and you don't really understand all this yet, what you're seeing outside of you is validating all of these things for you because you're attracting the people who are giving you what you're putting out. Repeating patterns. And the repeating patterns in our lives are gold, absolute gold, because then we know what we need to work on. We know the area, we know the source. Until you find the source and you fix it, redirect it, change it, it's going to keep happening. And a lot of people eventually just settle down and accept the idea that, well, I'm just never going to have a good relationship, so I might as well hang on to this one because it's crappy but predictable. I know what to expect, and it's kind of comfortable, and I'm not that person. So I spent 2.5 years absolutely focused on me. Like, we are no more. Which is when I did all of the fine tuning and learning about the energetic stuff, and I started kind of testing it here and there, and finally, okay, well, that doesn't work, but that does, and so this is kind of how I came up with the whole coaching concept anyway. But if you know what your wound is, then it's much easier to isolate. If you have them all, like I did, it's okay. You just get to grow that much more. Like, look at me. Look at all the possibility for growth. I'm gonna be so badass when I'm done with this. And you never really get it done, but you consistently get better and better and better and better, and you can see in your environment the impact. If you change 1%, you see the impact. 2%, you see the impact. So it's like immediate return on investment. It's so worth the effort, because to go from just attracting, like, okay, this is the literal version of a shit magnet. Regardless of which one you're dealing with, or if you're dealing with all of them, a couple of them, you're not attracting good things in your life. And these wounds are causing you to keep getting more and more and more of the stuff you don't want. And what's even worse, this is the part that really, really clicked for me. So down here at the bottom, I don't know if you can see the little dude here. Okay, so it's like a little stick figure, and he's holding 2 ping pong paddles. This is your wounded inner child defending your old belief systems. Because your manifestation, those things that you have created that are wanting to come into your reality, they've got momentum. You've worked on them. You're ready. But unfortunately, all this crap, unresolved crap, puts up resistance, so you aren't able to actually receive it. And most people at that point get frustrated, and that's when they say, you know what, whatever, I guess that's just how my life's gonna go. But it doesn't have to, because this little dude down here is that wounded inner child. And when you address these issues and you start learning how to empower yourself and redirect and reprogram those old belief systems, he replaces the ping pong paddles with catcher's mitts. Now your inner child is empowered, and he can be a damn good catcher, because once you get that alignment and that empowerment, your resistance is gone, because your resistance lies in all of these old things that have just been sitting there, and so many of us aren't even aware of it. And when we look at the patterns that we're seeing in our world, we can see other people experiencing the same thing. So we think, oh, well, I guess that's just normal. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be normal. You can have a well above normal existence. And it's just understanding and addressing these things that we weren't aware of. Now, I do want to go down a list of reminders as you heal the inner child. And this is very important because, again, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but in incremental small changes, you see that return on investment. I mean, if this was the stock market, everybody would be buying in. It's that tangible and it's that rapid. But if you start here and you're aiming for here, then it doesn't happen overnight. But you still get to see along the way, and the joy is in the journey as you start to feel different and you start to see things differently, and your life starts to reflect back to you the beauty that wasn't there before. It's so worth the effort. So, anyway, reminders as you heal the inner child. Rest, and this is so important. We're in a society that's very push, 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 go, 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 force yourself to do it, driven. Some things are very important. And reframing your belief systems, healing your inner child, creating the life you really want to live, that's important. Rest. Make time for rest, because decades of unprocessed emotional experiences are stored in the mind and the body. There's beauty in that too, because the brain is a chemical factory, and these old beliefs and these old wounds have that thing firing like an engine with a blown cylinder. It's like, oh, there's no harmony happening up there, because all of these emotions and these things that are happening because of this old garbage kick out constantly, have your body in this like messed up mental state. And as you start to process this, your brain chemistry rebalances. You start getting control over all the misfires, and it's amazing, because we are a triune being, mind, body, soul. And as you start getting them in alignment, the body, these emotions are stored in the memory of your body, in your organs, in your muscle tissue. Every part of you is a part of this. And the dis-ease that is caused by all of this disease manifests in the body. And I shared a video, I don't know, about a week ago, about my own story. As I healed this, I healed a chronic, untreatable condition, health condition, that was supposed to put me on disability. And instead, I'm not. But it's because there's so little understanding of the energetic body and the connection between all three, and we've isolated it to, you've got people who work with your head, people who work with your body, and the people who've been historically working with your soul. That's another topic, but it's not pretty. It's not pretty. So it does require a lot of rest, because as you make these changes, it's not just mental. Your entire body and brain, everything's undergoing transformation, and that requires rest. We heal while we sleep. So you need to make sure that you rest your body, you feed it well, you drink water, it also helps flush the old out of the system. Boundaries heal. I am a believer in boundaries like a motherfucker. Good things, because there is this idea that setting boundaries makes you selfish. We don't want to look selfish. Yes, you do. Selfish. Prioritize self. You have nothing to give anyone else if you aren't taking care of you. When you're crippled under all of this garbage, what do you have to offer anyone? And so learn to set boundaries and hold them. Because what happens when you first start setting boundaries and you're still in the same social group is that those people want to test them, push, and they use this guilt to manipulate. That's a big one, right? It's not your issue. It's their issue. Your priority are your boundaries, because setting and holding healthy boundaries will heal you. You are worthy of being seen and heard. Don't allow people to shut you down. Your voice is important. After years of feeling unappreciated and unseen, there's a struggle sometimes to speak your truth, which plays in with the boundaries. But you have to care enough about how you feel, care enough about yourself to stick with it. Be seen, be heard, set the boundaries and hold them like, so the example that I typically use is, when you set boundaries, you need to have flying monkeys, flaming arrows, a moat with alligators on standby, because they're that important to your well-being. Don't rush or judge the process. Your inner child has experienced enough of both. No one's perfect. It's a process. It's new. And so one of the things that's good to say is like, I'm new at this, but I'm excited about learning more. I can tell that I'm making progress. It's not perfect, but I'm doing better than I did before. You know, just giving yourself that positive reinforcement, because when you start something new, you don't know anything about it. But we seem to have that expectation that we're just going to jump in there and get it all done, you know, and it's like, it's not like that anyway. Self-improvement, you can't get it wrong, and you're never going to get it completed, because there's no top out. There's no limit to how far you can grow and expand once you get past what's holding you back. Your parents may never understand you because they do not understand themselves. That's important, because if you're waiting for understanding and acceptance from other people to feel okay with yourself, nah. If it was going to happen, it already would have. Generally speaking, people don't understand or accept themselves, so they're not able to do it with others. Like, you know, doesn't trust themselves, feels insecure. You know, it's all here. The wounding came from wounded people. And that's why it's so important that we take the responsibility for ourselves to become better, to get past this, because this is what we pass on. When you have children and you haven't healed your inner child, you don't mean to. We love our children, but we unintentionally pass the wounding to them. And in turn, they pass the wounding to theirs. And it may be different wounding, because you're like, well, I'm not doing what my parents did. And so instead of a guilt wound, they give them a trust wound. It's still a wound, you know? The best response to "you've changed" is a sincere thank you. Going back up to boundaries, because that's part of that guilt manipulation. Wow, you've really changed. Thank you, I have. I'm glad you noticed. Because the people who were used to you not having boundaries are not going to easily accept them. This is why you need the flying monkeys, the flaming arrows, you know, whatever it takes. A private jet to fly away from them, but hold your boundaries. This is the most important part. Every time you show up for yourself, you heal the moments when other people could not. You are now an adult. You have the ability to protect yourself, to set the boundaries, to choose the people around you, to choose your environment, to choose what you do. You can choose to grow. It doesn't matter. Every time that you do for yourself what others could not do for you, it's healing. You start to trust yourself, which gives you the ability to trust others. I mean, it just builds and builds and builds. So every positive action that you take for your inner child, aka yourself, heals these wounds. You start to trust yourself. You start to trust your judgment. You start to get in a better place. You start to see all of this progress and you're just stoked. You know, now here's the problem. Not everyone's ready to hear this. Going back to your parents to explain to them how you were wounded as a child and how you healed your, they're not ready. They're not ready. Stay where you're at. Grow and expand. And when people come to you and ask you, how did you do that? They're ready. Those are the people you can share this with. And another beautiful thing is like having a group of people who are growing and expanding, who are trying to heal, who are trying to better themselves, because that's momentum. And the more momentum you get going, once you get this little dude with the ping pong paddles out of the way, the faster and faster and faster you break through, and you just can turn your life around significantly in a small amount of time. It's so worth the effort. So, all right, well, thank you for joining me today. I hope you're all doing absolutely amazing. Take your inner child out for some ice cream. Go swing at the park. Go do something fun. Life is not meant to be this serious. It can be as fun and easy as you are willing to ask for and allow it to be. All right. Talk to you soon. Love and light.